Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to not the first episode, but the second episode of the most amazing podcast you've ever experienced. Not amazing because of the content, not amazing because of the way we look, amazing because of the way we feel and what we're going to project onto you, which is good vibes, a good time, a little bit of education, and a lot of laughter and fun. Hey, that was off the cuff. I hope that was okay. So welcome to the show.
Welcome to the Primo Real Estate Channel.
And
you missed the part. Thank you, Irisham.
Let's try it again. Ready?
Welcome to Primo Real Estate Channel.
Unleashed. Hey, I forgot to make an introduction, so I'll leave myself for last. And obviously, we're joined as always with Mr. Jerry Pujols, real estate broker extraordinaire from Napa Valley Homestead Real Estate, live and in person. And we have his director of operations, Irisham Khan, which is the glue that keeps this and everything that he touches together. Super impressive. Don't try to poach him because we will hunt you down and we will tie you up and get rid of you. Do not, all the corporations out there looking at his magic, do not dare to poach him because we will protect him very fervently. And last but not least, Carlos Salazar, his old realty group, real estate broker, South Florida, coming to you live from Miami Unleashed.
Well,
Let's jump into it, Jerry.
I love it. A quick shout out to the Napa Valley, which is where we're from. So thank you for that, Carlos. So today I sent us a little bit of information from, do we want to just dive into business or do you want to talk? Can we catch up a little bit? We're getting close to the holidays. What's going on?
Yeah. I like to be romanced. I don't like to jump right into it. So let's, and I'm sure our viewers don't like that abrupt, how you used to date back in the day, Jerry. They don't like that. So I think that they like the nice, warm, and hey, let's have some appetizers and conversation first.
Absolutely. So yeah, we're ready, man. We're ready for the holidays over here. Everything's getting polished for a nice evening together with the family. It'll be small and quaint over here, but it'll be what it is. We do celebrate Christmas in my house, and I remember it fondly when I was in Puerto Rico. Though Christmas in Puerto Rico was so much fun, you guys. And I don't know if you know anything about this, Carlo, because I know, as you being my cousin, you were raised in Miami. And I know what Christmas is like in Miami, and it's a lot of fun. Puerto Rico takes it a whole other level, Carlos. When we were little, we literally get our little instruments, maracas, bongos, a few different things. What's the other instrument that shakes and it makes that little sound? I don't know what that's called.
Oh, yeah, I don't know what it's called either.
The kish, and that thing was my instrument. That's what I played. And 2 or 3 little buddies would get together and knock door to door and sing these songs. And one of the songs went like this. Are you ready for this?
Yeah, do it.
Okay, man. For those of you who don't speak Spanish, I'm sorry, but here it goes. Alegre vengo de la montaña de mi cabaña, que alegre está. Para pam pam para mis amigos les traigo flores de las mejores de mi rosal. But then you go into si no me das de beber lloro, si no me das de beber lloro, si no me das de beber lloro, si no me das. So to translate, si no me das de beber, if you don't give me any booze, I'm gonna cry. Singing that door to door at 7 years old. A little awkward. But Puerto Rico was like that, man. And then there's something that people would do, and they would call them assaults. And an assault was, let's say the 3 of us get together and we're like, hey, we're going to go to Danielle's house at midnight, and she better be ready because we're coming with the instruments, and she better have food prepared. She better be ready for an assault. So then you assault her house. She turns up the music. You just have a phenomenal time for about 15 minutes. Then you grab her and then you go to the next neighbor's house and you assault them. And this thing goes all night till like 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. And that's how the Puerto Ricans celebrate Christmas, man. It's a party that lasts probably about a month and a half because it lasts till the day of the 3 wise men.
Yeah.
So we get Puerto Rico, in Puerto Rico, we got gifts twice. We get gifts for Christmas and gifts for El Dia de los Reyes, which is the 3 wise men. And that was, if I remember correctly, January 6th.
Yeah.
And dude, it was fascinating. I just loved it. And ever since, I moved into the US when I was 10 years old, that stopped.
That's great. So basically you went from house to house doing home invasions and kidnappings. Is that pretty much the gist of it?
Well, and now, Irisham is connecting the dots. Irisham's like, oh, that's how you were such an amazing prospector knocking door to door, selling real estate to people because,
wow.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny you say that. That reminds me, that's old school Christmas caroling, right? And
Old school Christmas caroling.
I experienced that once, right? So we were visiting. I mean, I must have been like 22 years old, a long time ago. Summit, New Jersey, which is if you ever watch the Hallmark Channel. Not that I do. I've just heard of it. Okay.
Well,
Disclaimer. If you ever watch the Hallmark Channel, it looks like you just got dropped into a postcard. Beautiful, picturesque, small town, that type of town. So
yeah,
we were sitting in the house, and I mean, this is a home, and I'm sure you guys live the same way. I think quasi like this, that you don't lock your doors. I don't know if you guys lock your doors or things like that. They
yeah.
don't lock their doors. They keep their cars unlocked. I mean, that's the kind of community it is, right? Safe, that sort of thing. So at night, I'd be the one always locking all the doors, checking, make sure everything's locked and things like that. So one night, getting close to Christmas Eve, door on the, big knock on the door, da, 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 da. And I'm looking, hey, let's see. No one's expecting anyone. So I go there and I see a large group of people. So my first instinct, like, hey, this is a home invasion. There's a problem here. And then, and then my brother-in-law's like, no, they're just Christmas carolers. I'm like, what? That's real? And then I opened the door, and then they just did exactly what we did in the American version, beautiful carols. And then they did that. Then they invite you to go to the next neighbor's house, and they end up at. I mean, it was really an experience. It's unfortunate that doesn't happen in Miami because people will get shot and hurt, but it's a nice concept in the rest of the world or the rest of the country.
I love that. I went to visit my dad. I hadn't seen him in a long time, and I went to visit my dad not long ago. You and I had a good time getting together. But when I went to his house, Carlos, because he lives in sort of a townhome situation, split, and I showed up about midnight knocking on his door. I was honestly afraid for my life. I'm like, neighbors were turning on the lights, looking out. Who's that out there? I
Yeah.
just thought, man, I'm really taking my life into my own hands. Not what I'm used to.
Hey, back in the day, and from our culture, and I'm sure other cultures were like that or are still like this. It's you go and you just show up at your family's house, and you break bread, and you just show up without unannounced. But yeah, in today's, as we've transitioned to, at least in our society down here, you transition away from that. So when someone does knock on the door, it's funny you say that. I'm like, who's there? Are you expecting anybody? What, look out the window. Who is it? That kind of thing. So
Yeah, one of the most annoying things I remember about hanging out with my dad when I was a little boy is that before he went back home after work, he was going to stop in 3 or 4 different friends or family members' houses before going home, and that was just what you did. And I was like, oh my god, this never ends. We just
yeah,
visiting people, but boy, we've
yeah,
lost that. I love for Idisham to share how does he cope with holidays and all that, because his culture being different than ours.
yeah.
I'd be curious, how do you, is anything different at all, or is just another day, Eddie?
Another day.
Another day in paradise, man.
Just another day in paradise. Yeah, I mean, we don't really get like when I was in St. Helena, we didn't really get any Christmas caroling during in that neighborhood, or at least maybe I wasn't around for it. But even here in American Canyon, I haven't experienced any of that. So I think that might happen in more of those I think it happens in cities and like the little knit like communities within cities, but I'm not 100% sure because I haven't experienced it here at all.
Yeah, I think those
Seen
are
it in
rural
movies.
pockets. Those are rural pockets. Yeah,
Always,
those are in
always seen it in
movies.
movies. Yeah.
I want to dive into what I sent you this morning. I'm just scrolling through it, and the first one was, I went into Housing Wire because Housing Wire has a lot of good, valuable real estate insights and real estate information, primarily nationally. And I want to maybe thought that we'd start broad and then bring it into our local markets a little bit today. The first thing this article says is that, existing home sales lay the path for the 2024 housing market. And I think we're all seeing that because, as we discussed on our first episode, rates going down are really putting a boost into what I think we're projecting and predicting is going to happen first quarter of 2024. So I'm just kind of opening this up for discussion. And then Idisham loves graphs, man, and he understands them really, really well. I look at these kind of things, Carlos, and my brain goes into scrambled egg, maybe because I live on the sales side of the world. Can anybody help me decipher some of this?
Yeah, well, let's let the expert talk about those graphs, and then we'll jump in.
Well, just looking at it, I mean, it's showing that sales are trending downwards, right? As sales are trending downwards, you could see that the inventory had a dip and then started increasing a little. So let me read from left to right because I'm jumping all over the place.
It's
So
okay,
first graph.
Irisham. Take your time. It's
There
okay.
you go.
We have time, and this is
We have
all.
to, all right.
Yeah.
Okay. So the first graph is showing you the sales nationally. You can see at the bottom you have the dates, and then on the left is the numeric. So for at least the sales portion, that's the amount of homes sold. There was a dip starting in the beginning of the year in January, but that's kind of the trend in real estate. You get the holiday season coming in, so sales always tend to drop. There was a little pick back up around springtime, but as the rates kept increasing, you could see that the sales kept dropping. The next graph over shows the median sales price. That's the average sales price nationally. So you can see as the sales price decreased, the sales increased, right? So houses got cheaper, people started buying more. And then as the rates started going up, inventory shrunk and the average sales price started going up because there's not a lot of inventory in the market. Now the sellers can dictate what they want to sell at. So basic supply and demand going on there. The month supply just goes into houses each month. January through March 2023, there was not a lot, again, because of the holiday seasons, the new year being slow. And then after springtime, you can see that it starts picking back up. And then finally is the inventory. You can see it's not where it should be. It's usually, I think Housing Wire says that we nationally on average sell between 5.5 to 5.9 million homes annually. And this year we were at one of the lowest ends. We still went over the 4.6, but it's still low compared to what we should be at. The article did say they are projecting about an 8 to 10% increase next year with the Fed announcing the rate cuts. But even that is not where we should be. But it's a slow process when it comes to real estate. So as the rates trickle down, you'll get a little more inventory coming in, and hopefully that they'll entice some. The inventory would be from the sellers because of the low rates. Hopefully that entices them to sell, and then and that puts them in the buyer's market and increase buyers as well. So that's the outlook. That's how I read graphs. Me personally, I probably would have read that a little faster, but I had to explain it to you guys and the audience.
Don't worry about it. I think my paperwork for the AARCP came in while we were waiting. No, but hey, that's great. And I'll bring attention to the month supply, right? So a lot of graphs, a lot of information, and we've all been doing this for a very long time. So we're very familiar with interpreting data from graphs because we've seen them and we know what they mean, what they imply. Sometimes we know what they don't mean, right? But I think it's important to point out that the month supply, we're still not at a balanced market, right? So
Exactly.
For everyone out there, a balanced market is basically 6 months supply establishes the balanced market that's not in the buyer's favor or the seller's favor, right? So it's kind of even a balanced market, as they call it. So we're still in the territory of a buyer's market, right? However, inventory is extremely still low. So the price is going to continue to go up regardless of what happens with the interest rates. So the houses are going to continue to appreciate. And as we spoke last week, that's why if you need to make a move, you should make a move and not wait, because even though interest rates may level off, the prices are going to continue to appreciate. And as that article that you guys sent over from the Housing Wire, they did make it a point to highlight that unless there's a dramatic increase in inventory in the marketplace, the prices are going to continue to appreciate. So there's not going to be overnight a multitude of inventory overnight. So it's going to happen over time. But as that market reaches, I think that's one good earmark for people to follow is the inventory. So even the layman can look at that and say, okay, is the market for me as a seller, or is the market in the buyer's favor as in a transaction? And depending on what side of the fence you're on that transaction, you kind of make a educated decision, or if you need to reach out to a professional to get a little more guidance on that front. So
I love that you brought that up because I was going to attack more of the medium price. I was curious as to what the median price was in your market. I saw on that graph that it was somewhere around $390,000, which I don't think speaks to your market. I definitely know it doesn't speak to mine. What would you guess is the approximate median price in
I would say it's in the 300s, but the issue with that is that, at least my practice, the way I approach real estate, I get a little more granular to really know what the market says, right? These are aggregate numbers. So there's no delineation between an arm's length transaction and a transaction that's not arm's length. There's no delineation between what cash buyers are paying in the marketplace versus what they're not paying in the marketplace. So usually these types of different let's call it secular markets within the real estate market are different rates. So it's for me, it's difficult to cast like a broad brush because it all depends. Are you talking about are we talking about Napa? Or are we talking about some suburb in San Francisco, right? So
Yeah.
it's all very hyper local as to what's happening. So for example, in Key Biscayne is a very high end peninsula here. It's really an island, but it's we consider a peninsula. It's gorgeous. I have a listing there now actually, and we sold property there before. So that's a want market, right? So it's difficult. You have to discern the difference between a want market and a need market. And I think that the price they're looking here is for the average need a need market, which is a broad brush, right? So to me, it all really depends. And when we consult our clients, and I know you probably do the same thing, we tell them, okay, if you're in the market for this, if you're as a buyer, these are the different price points we should be looking at. They must all be arm's length transactions. Properties that are REOs that are sold in foreclosure, things like that, are going to go for a whole different price. So when you put all these buckets of properties together and come up with a broad number, it's a good barometer, but you need to dig deeper. And that goes to our point from last week, and you need a professional to do that. You need someone that can really get into the weeds and delineate what's really happening, what really happens in the marketplace. So yeah, that's my 2 cents.
It is he can't help it. He goes into sales mode no matter what. Okay, so here it is. I think that's called ABCs. Does anybody know what ABC stand for?
Yeah, I was about to say always be closing.
Always be closing. So it's in our nature. It's who we are. We can't help it. But with that being said, thank you for bringing that up, because that kind of reflects or answers a little bit of my curiosity for sort of the greater Miami area. What is, and I had a hard time adjusting to the 300s because I know that you guys are all over the place. I know that you can, you guys can sell $150,000 condos somewhere. Not often anymore, I'm sure, but they do exist, and I've seen really low price little studios in South Beach and things like that. But they're their own specific thing. When you take that whole greater Miami area, you have so many luxury homes. You start to throw all the numbers into the pot, then you end up with something like this in the fives. I'm curious as to, where's Napa in there? And I think you did a good job.
Yeah.
So we're at 882, but then you're sort of comparing apples to oranges, because your point is so well taken, Carlos. We have counties that share borders with us where this property changes dramatically, or not, I don't know if dramatically, but it changes by quite a bit. So let's put in Solano County in there and see what comes up for you, Idisham. Or maybe just Fairfield if Solano becomes too much.
Yeah, it might just be Fairfield.
Yeah, go to Fairfield.
It's kind of in the middle between the two, right?
Yeah. And then for Miami, just out of curiosity, let's put in, what do you think would be sort of an entry level? Let's put Sweetwater.
No, you're priced out in Sweetwater.
Really?
Oh yeah, we have one of that's used to be our grandparents' home was there. We have one of our Airbnbs is there. And it's crazy the amount of money that we've been getting offered. But the problem is it's a little, that's really it's a university market, because what's happening is there's a lot of gentrification, but it's really spearheaded on all the activity at the Florida International University. There's skyscrapers going up for student housing it'll blow your mind what Sweetwater looks like right now.
Forget that. That is
Eh,
amazing.
Yeah, we've been getting offers on our Airbnb. We've been getting offers on it for quite some time right now, and I'm like, that's crazy. But that's one of those areas that you won't let go. You should not let go of any property. So yeah, Sweetwater's not a good unless you compare it to another university driven market. It won't be a good example. But let's say an entry level market. I'd say
Hialeah,
no. Let's put in a Westchester.
Westchester.
You remember where Westchester's at, right, Jerry?
Oh, I do. I do. I do. I don't know that it'll come up for Florida. I think it's one word.
Yeah, one word, and it should come up Westchester, Miami-Dade County.
Yeah,
if
there
you
it
want
is.
it.
There
There
it
you
is.
go.
Yeah, so it's a little
It's right in there with Fairfield.
yeah, it's a little higher than Miami, and I think it overtook Fairfield recently.
That just boggles my mind, you guys. The fact that,
Yeah.
yeah, that just totally boggles my mind.
Guys, right
Yeah,
here,
what
a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, let's say in West Kendall area, a 2-bedroom, 3-bath, very modest home, 1,700 square feet will probably run you right now, probably 480, half a million. And
Yeah.
it's mind-boggling. Do you know what I mean? It's really mind-boggling, but
Wow. Well, I'm optimistic about this coming year for buyers.
yeah.
I think they're finally going to get a break,
Oh, yep.
and I think they're going to be able to get back in. I think they're going to have a lot more buying power than what they just recently lost when we were way over 7%.
Yep.
These mortgages. So I think it's going to be a great opportunity for them. Another thing that I sent to you guys was I saw that existing home sales grew in November after months of decline. So we were watching, the number of sales drop month over month over the month after COVID. And what we thought would be the recovery of a market, but the end of COVID became sort of the end of an era, the end of a real estate boom, unlike I think any of us have ever seen before. And going into this sort of a new normal, then we get into December. And I think for our company, I think we're having, if not one of the best Decembers ever, I think we might be having one of the best months we've had in a long time. How, Edisham?
Yeah, December's been it's always a weird one. Because you do have some agents that are trying to get all their sales closed in before the new year starts. So, but I think the last 2 years, December has been a really good month for us. It's always I guess it depends area to area, state to state. So
It's optimistic. It also mentioned that what is it? November it's slightly up, but we're still year over year. We're slightly down from last November. But still the outlook is really positive, right? I mean, and it's funny because I understand that there's a lot of these hurdles or these challenges, both financially speaking and different things for whether it be buyers or sellers in the marketplace. But I really, in my heart of hearts, feel that if you have a dream, whether it be on the buying side, the selling side, to get to that next chapter in your life, whether it be, wow, honey, I want to live closer to the beach. We're empty nesters now, or we got to get that first investment property. I think that just educate yourself, right? And don't fall automatically into whatever news outlet or that you subscribe to and allow any fear, because remember, there's a lot of motivation behind news, right? Sometimes it's unbiased news, sometimes, but there's always some sort of bias and there's a skew there, right? So there's a deviation from the mean in news. So you have to really educate yourself. So look at the same news from different outlets, educate yourself, and kind of really know what's happening, right? Because we may be talking about something here on the podcast today, and they can pull up a podcast on the same real estate topic, and someone's saying something different than what we're saying here today, right? So it's all really subjective. But I think that we're very transparent, right? We don't have a hidden agenda. We're not trying to sell anyone anything. And I think it's just, plain talk and the way that we see it, right? And then you have to make your decision at the end of the day. But it's interesting. And sometimes all these numbers are overwhelming. They really are, even for us, right?
Well, I just think that Irisham and I really need headphones. I think without headphones, there is no way that we carry the credibility that you carry. And we have to figure that out. Now that you've stepped up with camera, and you look beautiful, man. I got to tell you, you look good.
Thank you. It's a surprise, but I'll just clue you guys in. I opened up a feed for the general public to message me during our podcast, and I'm just going to read some messages here. Okay, here's John from Arizona. Carlos, you look great. Sue Beth from Sioux Falls. Carlos, you look amazing. Great information, Carlos. Carlos, you're the only legit person on the podcast with the headphones. What are these guys doing? They need to catch up to you. So weird, guys. I'm turning the feed off.
I have to say, if anybody wants to pipe up, and please give Edisham some props.
Oh wait, Idisham looks so damn young and good. Oh no, that must be an error. I know.
Yeah.
Young and good looking. No, they're not talking about him.
So I wanted to highlight, speaking of Idisham, so Idisham's closing a transaction with an investor that just came into the real estate market from out of nowhere, because he came across some liquidity, reasonable settlement after an accident. So he had some liquidity. He, unfortunately for him, he ended up not knowing how to navigate. I don't think he found a good financial advisor, and he just put all his money in the bank, and he put the money, and he let that broker. I don't even think I guess the guys that work at the bank have their Series 7, and I think they can broker out stocks. But what happened to him is because the person at the bank felt that he should be aggressive, and this guy's in his mid 40s, right, Idisham? He's probably in his mid 40s. He's not a kid. Yeah. And this guy puts him in these aggressive stocks, and all of a sudden, this guy who has no experience in investing, this guy goes out and puts them in real aggressive stocks, and this guy watches the stock drop by about enough points to lose $250,000. So, when this guy saw that just left an impression and really made him feel like he had no to little control as to what his future was going to look like, and how much further can that go before he has nothing. And the thing with this individual, he needed cash flow. He needed something every month because he is on disability. I mean, he was hit by an Uber driver crossing a street in the city. And with that being said, now he can't work. He can't do anything. So he really relies on cash flow. So he was referred to us by one of the contractors that we work with and who helps us get homes ready for market. We meet this guy. He has no idea how to go. He has no idea how to approach it. Idisham does an amazing job and finds them a beautiful, beautiful townhome in Marin County, which is Idisham. Can you go back and pull up stats on average price in Marin County? Just the median sales price in Marin County. So yeah, we get him into a beautiful condo in Marin County. This condo can probably he buys it for $650,000 cash. He's going to close on it Friday. All the funds are in. All contingencies have been removed, and he is going to get close to $4,000 a month. So look at the median price in Marin County, Carlos. So we get him into a condo for $650,000, 2-bedroom, 2 baths with HOA. HOAs are expensive. They're $509 a month, but everything is handled on the outside, the inside clean as a whistle. And all this being said, this guy's going to get close to $4,000 a month out of this. And what's really cool, and what Idisham and I are the happiest for him, is that now he owns the house for the rest of his life in case anything were to happen to the rental that he's in. He's in a rental that he gets to rent super low, super inexpensively. And that being said, he's like, I'll just stay in my rental. The rent doesn't cost me a lot. I need cash flow. I need that payment every single month. And ultimately Idisham might end up putting them in 1 or 2 other units and hopefully get them closer to that $8,000 or $10,000 a month that you need in Northern California to survive. So
was that his NOI, the $4,000, or is that his gross?
No, that is totally his gross.
Okay.
Yeah. Not net. He's still contemplating whether he's going to have a property manager manage it for him. We're going to encourage him to hire a property manager that we recommend. By the way, Idisham, just to update you, the property manager that I use will not go to Novato, so we probably will use the one that you interviewed the other day, and we really want to recommend that he go with a professional property manager. Idisham and I can do a pretty good job finding him a tenant. But as far as managing day-to-day, this person who has never owned real estate before has no business managing a rental. And just for a mere 6 or 7 or 8% per month, just let somebody else do that.
That's 100% on point. It is. I mean, even those that do property management, I like hats off to you, because the calls, and you've dealt with it, your own property with tenants, the calls, the plumbing, the neighbors giving me a problem, the rent's late. How do you collect? Do you give a notice for the paid rent? Do you demand? Do we have to evict? It becomes really overwhelming for anyone. So that.
Going to court. I mean, I've had
Oh yeah.
situations where my property manager has gone to court in behalf of the client, because I refer my property manager to all of our clients, and she goes to court. She takes care of everything. So yeah, I totally agree with you. But I just find this story to be kind of unique. Somebody that comes across a lot of money, some people that come into inheritances, and what do you do, and how do you put yourself in a position where you can generate a lot of cash every month? And it's not just from the cash that you're doing well, is the long-term value of appreciation. These properties in Marin, something at 650 in Marin, who's to say that in 5 to 10 years that's not worth $1.2 million? It's the way real estate as an asset compounds. Real estate as an asset compounds.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, look at Sweetwater. You just said it best. I mean, who would have told us?
Pull it up. Let's pull it up. Eddie, can you pull up Sweetwater, Florida? Let's just see. And now they just annexed a huge, because remember back in the day, Jerry, when you were down here more often, Sweetwater really just ran from our grandparents' house a little further to 90 something Avenue to Flagler, and then back towards my mom's house and towards the turnpike. So now it engulfs, look at that. Right now it engulfs all the way to Dolphin Mall, and they annexed a huge portion, which is also Sweetwater, so it's a lot of industrial too. But tell me that's not crazy. Look at that.
Well, and those were, and again, talk about compounding asset. Sweetwater properties, when they first sold in the late 70s, early 80s, that's kind of when that neighborhood was created. I'm going to say probably close to 80. And these properties were selling for $8,000 to $12,000.
Do you know the history of Sweetwater, Jerry?
No, please. I enough to be dangerous, and I'd love to hear yours, because you know exactly what it is. I want to listen.
I found out by accident. I was whatever, whenever I was in grad school. So we're sitting there, and I thought what the course was. I think it was a statistics course, whatever. So they gave us he gave us an exercise to kind of get our mind off of the subject at hand. So he goes, listen, when you come in for class, I want you guys just to refresh your minds, and we're gonna do something completely different. I want you guys to wherever you're from, just come into class. Let's start the next class with a little sidetrack, a little humor, a little fun. So I want you to research wherever you grew up, and come back and give us a history on that. You know what I mean? And I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool. Then before getting into a statistics class, that's kind of a nice little icebreaker. So we did it throughout the week. So when it was my turn to start researching, I'm thinking, oh, this is going to be something cool. I'm thinking, is there going to be like a organized crime component? Because back in the 20s, or Al Capone had a house down here. I'm thinking like something a little edgy like that. So here is what I had to present on. Ladies and gentlemen, Carlos Salazar, hi. Thanks for joining me here today. I want to talk to you about Sweetwater, Florida, where I grew up when I moved there when I was 8 years old. And basically, it was, and I'm gonna use a politically correct term here, so don't worry, I'm not gonna go off the reservation. Oh, I just messed it up, didn't I? Sweetwater was basically established for retired circus little people from the circus.
Wow.
So they would retire there, and it turned into a camp, and it turned into a city, and they founded it. It was little people that are retired from the circus. So that was the history of Sweetwater. It was founded by circus retirees. You know what I mean? So it was kind of like interesting. You know what I'm saying? Everyone had like a really sexy thing, but I'm like, I think that is crazy. And if you look at it, you would think that the first person that went there because they retired from the circus would be like, it was dust, and it was probably, housing back in whatever it was. And then now look at that price right now, and look what that's turned into. So to your point, that real estate is always an appreciating asset. And if you have it as an investment vehicle, you're double dipping there, right? You're getting the appreciation, you're getting the ROI, and it's crazy. And then I think that the most common, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think most really significantly wealthy people that you ever hear of have a significant real estate portfolio, if not an only real estate portfolio that got them to where they are, right? So they always have that component in there. So
what I love about real estate is the fact that you don't have to be that smart.
no.
it doesn't require you to be, I mean, to be an astute stock investor, you better back it up with some significant intelligence, statistics, all these things that are needed and required to be good at that. And even the ones that are good take major spills. Real estate is something like we told this particular client, at least for the rest of your life, you have a home that's paid for and you have a place to live. And that's secure for him. He's never had that. And, you know, like for me, I used to tell my wife when we were young and started with our first rental, we always knew we can drive by that place and we knew it was there and we knew it was generating some revenue. Even if at that point the market had dropped, maybe the value had dropped below what we actually paid for it. And I often go back to what a friend of mine in real estate said, and I repeat this often, which is, you know, if I would have bought in 15 years ago, if I would have bought the overpriced listings, not the good deals, just the overpriced ones, if I would have bought those, things would be just a little financially better than they were now. But the magic in real estate is how to hold. How to hold that asset is what becomes the discipline. You know, you got to try to make sure that your return covers your expenses, because if it doesn't, if you're going into your wallet every single month, that's the danger zone for a lot of people when they get into negative cash flows. And that requires besides some abdominal fortitude, it requires a real discipline and staying power not to sell when you get scared because the markets are going down. Real estate is cyclical, but I say cyclical in an upward like motion. It always ends up coming out and going back up higher than it was before. It's been like that since the beginning of time.
That's 100%. You know, it's funny because, you know, the one of the basic tenets of real estate is how do you value, the best valuation of a piece of real estate property is what? Highest and best use, right?
Oh, thank you.
So highest and best use. So if you're looking at something that's an investment, right? So in that case, you're probably going to put a long-term tenant. And then I started looking at real estate in a whole different light with the advent of short-term rentals, right? So that really exponentially increases that tenant revenue. So if you have an investment property, you have to really squeeze the juice out of it, right? And so if you have an apartment building, maybe the answer is, hey, let's get a Coke machine in there. Let's get a couple of washing machines, whatever, to really make it produce as much as it can produce. But yeah, I love that short-term rental market. And it's crazy because do you remember the originations of, at least down here, and maybe I don't want to speak across the nation, but the origination of how realtors worked back then when it first occurred? Do you remember? No? Basically, I want to sell my house. I would have 50 guys, and I have pictures of Miami back in that era, which are really cool. Next podcast I'll share them with you, where I want to sell my house. They know Carlos wants to sell his house. You have all these realtors come and put their sign in front of the house and stand there as the prospective buyers would walk by. And then let's say Jerry's walking by, hey, I want to buy here. They'll have to give you that 10-second pitch, not even, to get you as a client and show you the house. And if you garner the transaction, then you get the commission. So that's really crazy, right? And then that was the advent of the open house.
I was going to say, is that what we call an
Yes.
open? Is that what we contractually call an open listing now? Because you can still sort of do that.
Yes. Well, I'm saying, yeah. And then that was the advent of the actual open house. You know, like when you have a listing, you do an open house.
Yeah, that's great.
So that's where it came from. I thought that was pretty cool. But yeah, so yeah,
You are a historian, man, all the way from little people to open houses, man. It is just freaking awesome. I love you.
Man, I wish. Hey, Eddie, you don't have to. Let's see how badass you are. Can you pull up? Maybe put 1930s real estate Miami or something like. You'll see a photo of what I'm depicting here, and it's so cool.
1930s open house or 1930s
something like that. 1920s
real estate open house.
Yeah, something. Yeah, it's really, and it's a nice, and these are real photos, and it really blows your mind. And I love to look at those old photos and like,
oh, that's so good.
Yeah, and you see someone sitting there, you know, just like Coral Gables. Coral Gables is a very high-end neighborhood. I think I would probably think it's maybe comparable in a lot of lights to Napa, right? It's a very exclusive neighborhood that's really coveted, right? And it's really expensive, and it's one of those want neighborhoods, not a need neighborhood. So you know you're paying, and because you're getting continuity, there's you know, if you know your grass is not cut, you know, you have a problem. Everything is manicured, beautiful, and things like that. So the gentleman that created it was just one of those real estate ventures where they started shipping people in. We have this, and that's where he came from. And it's funny because as we grew up here, I don't know if you thought the same thing. I thought that Coral Gables had some significant historical significance. Like, wow, look at these columns. Were the Romans here? And it's some guy with a real estate vision, Merrick, and that's why Merrick Park is named after him. And actually, his original home in Coral Gables, right on Coral Way, is a museum. And even though I've grown up here my entire life, I've never visited. And I told my wife, man, we got to go just peek in there and just take a look. So yeah.
The one person that I've heard of was a real estate ninja out there was Flagler. I guess Flagler was a big deal. I don't know if
Well,
you know
oh my God, I've been to Flagler's house a million times in Palm Beach. I love that guy. Yeah, he brought the railroad down here, and it's funny you bring up his name. One of our favorite places to stay is on the Breakers, which is a very historic hotel in Palm Beach, very exclusive, beautiful. It's a great place to go. And down the street is Henry Flagler's home. It's called Whitehall, if I'm not mistaken. And we've been there a bunch of times, and it just blows me away because back in the day, that's back in the Gilded Age, right? So back in those days, this is where the business card came from. So I want to talk to Jerry. It's Jerry Flagler sitting inside. I want a meeting with him. I'll knock on the door. The butler will come to the door, ask who's calling, and I give him my calling card. And then he'd go to you or go to your wife if it's someone to see your wife, whatever, and they'll present it in the drawing room and say they're here to see you. And then you're like yay or nay, or tell them we'll come back, that kind of thing. So that's the advent of the card. So Henry Flagler's home, fun fact, he has stairs, and one of the stairs is the exact age of his wife that he built a home for. The exact amount of steps was her age at that time. And it's crazy. And what blows my mind of that era, and I'll shut up, is that these men of industry like Henry Flagler amassed all this wealth and pioneering and trailblazing and really left their mark that's still here today without an internet connection and without a cell phone, without technology. Think about that.
without a fax machine.
Without a fax machine, without technology. Could you imagine the logistical expertise you would have to have major railroad construction going on, to have steel mills and manage all this, right? It just like you and I right now. Hey, Eddie, can you pull this up? Yeah, boom, here you go. Hey, listen, Jerry, you're in Napa. Jerry, I'm going to send you a contract. You have it in 5 seconds. I mean, that didn't exist. So think about that,
Yeah. Well, you want to come to Napa and you're here 5 hours later.
Yeah, you're right.
Not 5 months later.
Yeah, we're not trekking in a wagon.
Oh, no, that was a great visual, man. I love the journey. I always forget how much of a historian you are, man. I
don't think I'm a historian. I just
want to capitalize. I want to capitalize on that.
It's funny, another the Biltmore Hotel, right?
Oh, I've stayed there many times, man.
Yeah, they used to be a mental asylum during the war.
So when we were so real quick, when I was in high school, the initiation to manhood was kind of walking into the Biltmore, breaking through the fence and going in the building. I never did, but it was proposed to me, and I kept hearing that people were thrown off of the 13th. I don't know if any of those if any of those things were tales or true. You coming from law enforcement, were any of those things true, that things happen on the 13th floor?
Well, listen, I got some crazy stories, and you won't believe them I tell you, but yeah, I'm superstitious like that, stupid superstitious like that. And the other thing that happened to Biltmore was a famous murder back in the day. I forgot his name. I got to look it up. Where they were gambling.
Used to stay there too, I think.
Yeah. He had a house down here. So yeah, that was back in the gangster area. There was a lot of that going on here.
And they have a beautiful golf course there too, right?
Oh yeah, it's beautiful. And actually, one of our favorite restaurants to eat is at the Biltmore. It's one of the most famous brunches in Miami. And then there's another restaurant that's an Italian restaurant that's beautiful, and you sit in the open aired courtyard, and it's romantic, and they have soft music, low lighting.
I love their swimming pool. Their swimming pool is
it's when it was created, but I think it was one of the largest in ever. Period.
It was insane. It's insane.
Yeah.
And being from California, you feel like you go to the Biltmore and you're getting a discount. I mean, it's an amazing value for that hotel. So anybody that wants to experience something 5-star, but not for like 5-star pricing, and I don't know, last time I stayed there was 5 or 6 years ago, so it may have changed, but it's just beautiful.
Yeah, it's not cheap, but now, and one of the biggest selling points there is there's a lot of weddings that happen there because of the beautiful scenery and the actual venue, the actual the hall, or whatever you want to call it. It's gorgeous, with the cathedral ceilings, and it's really, really beautiful. But yeah, so we have a few nice things down here, a few things that are pleasing on the eyes, and even I've lived here all my life, and they're still, when I drive by, they're all inspiring still, like, wow, that's beautiful, you know. So
One of the things that really blows my mind are really those columns and the gables made out of coral rock.
oh
You know,
yeah,
I just find that so beautiful that the coral rock from the earth there is used to build things, and it's just gorgeous. Should we talk about anything else for the good of the order? I think we're coming up on our hour, and we don't want to bore people to pieces with our monotonous with our monotony. And I know Irisham has had very little to say today because we're capitalizing on Primo time. So anything that comes to mind, Irisham, can I please put you on the spot?
No, I was just researching, trying to find those pictures. I couldn't find any. I just found the history of open houses, and I guess in the 30s, real estate companies began to employ multiple agents, allowing them to take on multiple listings. And then in the 30s and 40s, real estate agents began seeing open houses as a personal marketing tool. So they were using the contacts they made during open house to market other listings that might be right for the buyer. So
today, for a real estate professional, I think is the best use of their time spent if they're looking for more business. I still believe it. When you have an opportunity to get in front of somebody face to face, and you can really showcase what it is that you can do for somebody, it's an opportunity that doesn't come around all the time. But in open houses, you do get an opportunity, and there is a skill, and it's all value driven, and it's all how you present and how trustworthy you are in that 3 minutes.
100%, 100%.
Can I show you something that I've been doing while we've been talking?
Yes, depends.
Hold on.
Eddie, you may have to pause the recording.
Hold on. Check this out. So you know that I've been doing a lot of hiking and a lot of
Yeah,
somewhat extreme things. At least for me, at my age, I'm doing some pretty extreme things. So this little gadget is called Gogsy. I don't know if it's Coxy or Gogsy, but I think that's a G.
what is it? A piece of plywood? What is it?
It's it's the most expensive thing that you can imagine that should only cost $3 to put together, but it's literally like 70 something dollars. And what it is, you know, I always say that I've had glass ankles growing up. You know, I can roll my ankle just by breathing,
Yeah,
walking.
yeah.
And this little tool has strengthened my ankles to and it's kind of apropos that we're doing this because Irisham and I were thinking, how do we add, you know, I have the podcast, the Body Mind Index, and what we talk about. Thank you, Iri. That's amazing. And look at what it does. It literally helps you strengthen all those tiny little muscles and ligaments in your feet, and then your ankle, and it affects everything. And I'm doing this for 2-3 minutes a day. And sometimes they say you shouldn't even do it that long, just seconds here and seconds there. And it has changed the game. You know, the other day I went on a 12-mile run, no issues with my ankles. Now I'm doing trail running, no issues with my ankles while I'm trail running. If I misstep or even fall, it's not because, you know, my ankle rolled to a point where it hurts like that. It was just that I misstepped and I recovered and I keep running. So
But how do you apply? Wait, I can't picture it.
Go back to the picture.
Yeah, go back to the picture real quick.
We're going to wrap up today with a little bit of Body Mind Index. So you see how she's standing on it?
Yeah.
You can adapt these little tabs, the little tabs underneath the piece of wood that you stand on. These little tabs are removable.
Mm-hmm.
So I can take these two from the bottom, from the ankle part, I can remove them, and I can just put one in the middle, which will make the ankle part less stable. So when you're standing on it, you're shaking like this.
Ah.
And that shaking with your weight on it, you know, first you start by holding on to a chair, holding on to something.
Yeah.
From that, you'll eventually do it with your own you'll start balance. And for people like us who are over 50, you know, the wobbles are a thing. You know, young people don't understand what we're talking about when we say the wobbles, but balance becomes something that we want to hang on to. And, you know, there's statistics about falls and the loss of balance as we age and all that. This little tool is amazing. And by the way, I'm not getting paid for saying anything about this. It's just a great little tool. somebody can build this thing at home for $4, but the company has one already built for you. This one was like $70. The one that Idasham pulled up, I think, was like 40 or $50. If you have issues with your ankles, the wobbles, consider it.
So tell me, Jerry,
What?
if you can say one thing that you benefit from, and I love this, but one thing that you can benefit from for being out in the woods by yourself. And if the viewers don't know this, Jerry's been uh trying to summit a very formidable mountain near where he lives on the West Coast. What's the name of it again, Jerry?
Mount Whitney, highest point in the lower.
Mount, so he actually goes by himself with no support, self-sufficient, and try to do this. So he's been overnight by himself. He's done it in another trek, right? There was another the
Jamir Trail.
Jamir Trail where you met that young lady that helped you ease your pack and things like that.
Yeah.
And so what do you gain from the, and I think there's a lot to be said about this, and I can't wait to be in that situation again. And when you're out in the woods by yourself, what if it's one thing that you would gain that you can share with the audience here of what you receive from going out into nature by yourself, self-sufficient, with only you and your thoughts in tow? What would that be?
If it's only one thing, is mental clarity. If it's only, but if you allow me a couple.
Yes. Hold on. This is a democracy. Idia, do you agree? Do we let him say a couple more, or?
Yeah, I'm
All right. Let the record reflect that's 2 yays. So go.
Isham is like, I've heard them all before. I'm good.
He goes like, yeah, is it different or the same? Okay.
Same one. For me, it really is mental clarity. I think it's confronting some fears, and discomforts. I think it's a big part of it, is just walking into those fears. Lastly, solitude allows for I think mental healing. If you're struggling with anything mentally, or too much, or anything where you just feel like the world is on your shoulders, even if you gave yourself 24 hours by yourself, it does something very special for me and very magical. So I highly recommend it. I don't think anybody has to go as extreme and as crazy. And it might be, I always talk about Danny Lau, where Danny, I would work Danny so hard, for 5 years. He was my right-hand person. And Danny would really, he's a young man from China, and he understood the value of being alone for a moment. And Danny would carve out, I drive by some random parking lot somewhere, and there's Danny parked in the middle of the parking lot. And I call him, and what are you doing? Oh, just meditating for 20 minutes. So it's however it is that one finds that solace and that solitude to be within yourself. It could be really healing. And for me, it doesn't happen in 20 minutes. For me, it takes days. And then I come back a new person, ready with some new ideas, totally refreshed and ready to go, and wanting to conquer another mountain. So that was the long version. Sorry.
No, that's perfect. And I think it was too short, actually.
Unleashed.
And I'll tell you something. Yesterday, I went had to meet a prospective buyer at the Key Biscayne condo, coincidentally. So when I was done with that, because Marty couldn't go, and it's really steps away from the ocean. So I'm like, man, let me go down there and take a walk. And it was already getting sunset, so I took it. There's a private beach access, so it's not a public beach. So I went out there, then I'm like, oh, let me shoot a quick impromptu video, whatever. So I did that. It was crazy. There was a guy, it was rainy, very windy, getting really dark, and there was a guy in the background windsurfing right behind me. And you would think that I set that up, right? But it was so cool. And at one point towards the end of the video, the guy comes off the ocean and is in the air. And I'm like, that is crazy. Anyways, so I do that, and just to connect with nature by yourself without anyone around, with that silence of nature, which is really sometimes deafening, because it could be a breeze in the woods. In your scenario, in those scenarios, it's the whistling sound of the trees, and which is a real thing, and it's the sounds of nature. So the ocean breaking, and it was like such a zen state that there's something to be said about grounding yourself. And some people do that. Some people take they get barefoot, they hug a tree, and it's a real thing. You know what I mean? To ground yourself with nature. So there's a lot to be said for that. And I can't do that every single day because of the hustle and bustle of life. But so the closest thing that I do is every time I'm in the car, and I do it subconsciously, I don't even turn on the radio. I don't even notice. I don't even turn on the radio, and I'm just driving and driving with nothing, you know. And I don't know. Sometimes it's scary to be with your thoughts. Sometimes it's not. So it's a balance act. How about you, Eddie? Where do you find peace and resolve in that young brain that's creating that hair on top of your? I don't know.
Beautiful head of hair.
Yeah, bro. I just can't. I'm gonna look at him like this. I'm gonna cover the hair part
Yeah.
and see when he looks bald.
Yeah.
Where do you find peace and solace within the context of nature or a location or an activity?
I personally do it through either basketball or when I'm out on the golf course. It's just easy for me to do it there.
Awesome.
Just, I don't know, no other thoughts. So
The golf course is great. I like that too.
yeah.
Let's not talk about aptitude, just presence. I get points for showing up. Okay.
I'll throw him under the bus a little bit and hopefully I'm not crossing a boundary, but you know, Idisham in his culture, he prays so many times a day. And I have to imagine, Edie, correct me if I'm wrong, that there is some power to being able to just stop. And,
Yeah.
and I think that's beautiful, man.
Yeah, no, there is. I mean, it's some people find it challenging, but if you can do it, we pray 5 times a day. So if you can, if you can do it, it has its own benefits. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So what should we talk about for next week? I'm hoping to start bringing in some guests, gentlemen. I have thinking of a lender, property manager, thinking of possibly an economist, thinking of going down that wormhole of value for anybody that joins this this community that we're slowly but surely building here. While we're doing that, please, we ask any of you who are out there interested in knowing more about the real estate market and how it's approached nationally and locally, please hit that subscribe. That would mean the world to us. It would keep us motivated in doing more of these. We have a lot of fun with each other, but hopefully you can join us and have some fun with us and bring some levity to your day while having a complex topic like real estate. So if you hit that subscribe, we love it. Hit that like, be very cool. The algorithms pick that up and put us out there just a little bit more so we can continue to grow this channel.
That was beautiful. Can you say it again?
No.
Oh. It was nice. That was off the cuff. See, when you do things from the heart, it's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing, right?
Yeah, that's one thing that we worked through with Danny. We used to say Danny would sell real estate from the head. And once Danny connected that real estate transactions are done from the heart, he became one of this country's 30 under 30 by National Association of Realtors. He really connected with the value of selling from the heart. So I'm very proud of
Nice.
Mr. Chukdo Lau, who goes by Danny Lau. I've known him since he's 15 years old. Shout out, Danny. Love you. And I'm sorry for working you so hard, man. That was really brutal. Anyways, so with that, should we just say thank you for watching the Primo Real Estate Channel?
Unleashed.
Unleashed.
Unleashed. Thanks for joining us, everyone.